Released by Square Enix in 2013 on the PC and PlayStation 3, Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Awoken would be the first of 5 major content updates for Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn. Directed by Naoki Yoshida and written by Kazutoyo Mahiro and Natsuko Ishikawa, each chapter would further more of the main story, leading into the next expansion, Heavensward. Among content or quality updates or changes, new trials, dungeons, PvP modes, and raid content would be added, as well as new quest lines for Beastman tribes. Rogue would be added as a new class and Ninja would be added as a new job. Player housing, hairstyling, and the glamour cosmetic system would all add personal customization options. Chocobo raising, elite monster hunts, player marriage, and the Gold Saucer Casino would be among the many new activities now available. Keep in mind for this video, only the 2.1 through 2.55 story campaign will be covered. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with recapitation. As the chapter begins, the Scions return to the Waking Sands where Minfilia reports the Archons are investigating the primal behind the roar they heard earlier, and Urianger directs the warrior to meet with Alize, who's looking into the 4th primal as well. She has discovered a pattern to their arrival, and as they investigate an old Imperial site, she explains ancient Alec created Dalamud, dubbed Meteor by the Garleans, as a celestial prison for Bahamut, and this is an intact portion of the satellite. When Louisoix tried to imprison the primal at Cartano, he failed and perished, yet Bahamut also strangely disappeared, and stranger still, the wings before them are plainly those of Bahamut, somehow still retaining its physical form after all these years. Alize notices someone looking on, but further exploration uncovers more of the massive dragon, like its hand, technology used to control dragons, and the severed head of the primal still preserved atop a massive crystal, keeping it alive like a heart. Even more shocking is Louisoix himself is down here as well, alive somehow, and looks back at his shocked granddaughter before walking away. Unable to follow for now, Alize is content to know the primal did not kill her grandfather after all, though a dormant regenerating Bahamut is still a problem for the realm. Choosing not to alarm the Alliance of a potential resurgent calamity, Alize leaves to investigate further as the warrior hears from Minfilia the sudden popularity of the Scions is now overwhelming and is becoming counterproductive. All manner of patrons now seek to pull the group further from their stance of neutrality for personal gain, and some groups like the Syndicate do not appreciate the rejection. Alphinaud presents the solution of the Scions moving their headquarters from Ul'dah to neutral territory to not only maintain political neutrality, but also competing spheres of power like the Syndicate. Minfilia is reluctant to leave just yet, but a crafty Alphinaud finds her foster mother, a famous songstress thought dead, to come in and ease her worries and persuade her to move on. Declaring their new headquarters to be housed in Revenant's Toll in Mordona, Alphinaud already expected this outcome and has made all necessary preparations. As the group prepares to relocate, Tataru considers other means with which she can contribute beyond administrative work, such as mining. Afterwards, the warrior is called over to Gridania to hear from Kublokop and Kane Senna about the manifestation of the Mughals' patron, Good King Mogulmog XII, though the means of which were not the normal way of summoning a primal. Regardless, he has a bad influence on the Mughals, driving them to become more warlike, and thus the warrior confronts and succeeds in sending the king away once again. Back at the Waking Sands, the move is nearly complete when they hear a scream from Minfilia. The warrior connects with her via the echo and sees she was visited by a white-robed Ascian emissary who came in peace, shared that La Habrea was defeated but is not dead, and cannot be seen by people without the knowledge or gift. The stranger adds the echo gives focus that, when developed, will enable her to see their true forms and not these avatars. He encourages her to master the gift, as doing so will foster mutual understanding and peace between them, though as he tries to leave, Minfilia tries to halt him only for the emissary to easily disable her. The warrior gives chase, but it turns out the emissary was waiting for them, verifying their power personally, admitting how La Habrea is an odd one among their number, and introducing himself as Elidibus. Moving on, the Scions enjoy their new spacious headquarters, the Rising Stones, as they also declare their political and national independence, being an organization without borders to serve Eorzea as a whole. For the first order of business, Urianger mentions their allies that were asked to research the Ascians, the students of Aldesian, have suddenly dropped contact. Minfilia suspects the worst and the Ascians, wondering if there is a way to permanently defeat them, and worrying about her friend Kryl. Outside, the warrior spots an outlandish yet familiar man who persuades them to check out a revolutionary archaeological expedition, of which Sid himself is a part of. He adds they endeavor to unearth more secrets of the Allegan Empire alongside head researcher and founding member of the Circle of Knowing, Rambros. The first structure they aim for is the prominent crystal tower nearby, and if Ultima Weapon and Dalamud are any examples, they must proceed cautiously as the defenses for its knowledge are formidable. At the same time, Biggs and Wedge are working on a crystal-powered airship and pause to lend their aid too, as the group is introduced to a new ally, a Charlian marksman and student of Aldesian, Grahatia. He names their fellowship Noah not only as an acronym for notoriety, but also after a notable Allegan archmagus. Besting the deadly foes of the massive labyrinth within, Graha shares it is believed the tower serves to collect and store the endless energy of the sun, and the group pauses for now to study the next leg of their trek. To the side, the outlandish man finds readings of an entity that exceeds even Ultima Weapon, revealing himself to be Nero in disguise and eager to reclaim personal glory. Resting in the city, the warrior is brought to the attention of the tale of a famous gentleman inspector and agent of inquiry, Hildebrand, who died trying to solve the mystery of Meteor. However, helping his assistant Nashu leads them to discovering him again, who only thought he was dead, as she takes a forceful approach to restoring his memories. With the Echo, the warrior learns the inspector was merely buried alive in error, and back in action, Hildebrand is eager to work on a case, though his efforts are now rivaled by a headstrong reporter named Ellie. Working together, they altruistically solve several mysteries, as Hildebrand's reputation as a gentleman of light is revived once again, though a master thief soon announces himself. Back with the Scions, the Warrior of Light, Y'shtola, and Thancred investigate the reason for a large supply of crystals gone missing, as elsewhere Urianger spots visitors from the distant land of Doma seeking audience with the Sultana. Interceding, Alphino explains Doma as one of the eastern nations under Imperial rule, and meeting with them, Lady Yugiri explains the Domans tried to free themselves from the Imperials during their internal war of succession, but failed in the opportunity and were crushed. Alphino is surprised to learn news of the Emperor's passing in the first place, but more surprised to learn they burned Doma to the ground as a lesson to others. All who remain are on a boat here, and while Uda already strains under its intake of refugees from the Calamity and Alamigo, he clarifies it is the Syndicate Yugiri must persuade for aid. Gaining an audience, Yugiri offers their service in exchange for asylum, and while some, like Merchant Teleji, agree to this, Syndicate leader Lolorito points out their burdens and risks in such an action, influencing everyone else to oppose the motion. To the side, Nanamo apologizes for her powerlessness before the Syndicate, though Alphino proposes they take sanctuary with the Scions in Revenant's Toll, where they can work to help improve the town while guaranteeing shelter and food. Yugiri accepts this deal, and as the migration proceeds along, Y'shtola returns to report the culprits behind the crystal theft are the Sahagin, meaning to summon the primal Leviathan. What more, one of them spoke of the gift of knowledge of eternity, triggering an echo response from both Minfilia and the warrior, as they confirm for themselves these were the words of Elidibus. Despite not knowing what a primal is, Yugiri offers her aid in battle, possessing a very particular set of skills, joining Minfilia and Thancred in visiting with the Admiral, who asks them to thwart the summoning before it's too late. Yugiri shows off the effective form of her nation's fighting style, but the group is not quick enough to stop the summoning. Somehow, the Elder Sahagin indeed gains a strange power of life beyond death, able to seize other bodies for its soul, though it still loses and its soul is quickly consumed by Leviathan. The primal escapes to sea to create a giant tidal wave and smash the coastline, and to counter this, the group hurries to use another corrupted crystal to weaken her elemental control. Sailing an elemental converter out to sea, the team fights the Lord of the World on their own terms, using clever magitech to edge out a win. Victorious, the Admiral thanks them all, especially Yugiri, for whom she arranges provisions to be sent to her people, and as thanks in return, Yugiri offers to share knowledge of her martial talents. In private, Y'shtola brings up again the inconvenient truth that the Sahagin acted in self-defense with her primal, against Limsa Laminza aggression, and while the Admiral has every right to let her people flourish, this path is not likely to end well. Back at the base, Minfilia tells the warrior the Elder Sahagin was using the Echo power, though is unsure of not only how it was gained, but also how it was able to jump bodies with its soul. Still, this ability, also held by the Ascians, shows they may be immortal but are not invulnerable. At this time, Urianger comes in to report the island base of the students of Aldesian has been annihilated and suspects a spell of the magnitude of Ultima was the cause. Elsewhere in secret, the merchant Teleji lays the seeds for his own revolution. As the warrior meets with Alize and Urianger, they convey the idea that it was Dalamud that was constructed to gather the rays of the sun and channel it into the Crystal Tower. For this purpose, Bahamut's ability to manipulate massive amounts of energy was why it was bound inside the Red Moon, to act as a living core. The coils they observed binding him are also the means of sustaining his broken form, preventing him from both dying or truly living. Thus, were they to undo the coils, the primal would likely dissolve away. Finding another fragment, the warrior prepares to explore a second coil when Alphino makes a brief appearance and warns them not to allow his sister to turn this mission to dispel Bahamut into a Louisoix rescue attempt. When Alize arrives, she journeys down with the warrior until she is shocked to see someone wearing the infamous armor of the White Raven, Legatus Nail, who spearheaded the original Project Meteor. However, the person inside the armor assures her Nail is indeed dead since the Calamity, but quickly striking, Alize knocks off the imposter's helmet to reveal an identical-looking woman to Nail inside. She explains Bahamut artificially created her when the original Nail died, resurrecting her with Nail's essence to be a loyal servant, and gifted with the same name and monstrous new power. As the group defeats her, Bahamut releases hold of Nail's mind, where the fragments of the originals speak out, despising being used this way. Before she can speak more, she is shot down by a spell from Louisoix, seeing the red moon as she dies again and still admiring her project. Wanting to believe in her grandfather, Alisaie shuts down this coil, hoping it will slow the regeneration of Bahamut, but she is blasted back by Louisoix himself, warning her not to interfere in his project anymore. He gives them one chance to leave, and catching the glowing eyes, Alisaie is heartbroken to see her grandfather as just a husk thrall to Bahamut now, same as Nail was. They retreat, but not before Alisaie swears to avenge her grandfather. Urianger explains the original Nail was a man who built a device to control the Red Moon since he did not have access to the Crystal Tower, and thus disturbed Bahamut, who then enthralled him. After Nail was killed, Bahamut resurrected him as a woman this time, and continued to make use of him as a thrall as they halt their investigation for now. Speaking of investigations, Hildebrand runs into another competent rival in the form of the nobleman inspector Briardine, as along with Ellie all work together to solve another mystery. Along the way, they run into an oafish collector named Gilgamesh and his green-feathered rooster Enkidu, and with a secret dance summon up the attention of a gentlemanly man among men, Godbert, Hildebrand's own astonishingly accomplished father. As the case ends with a battle on a big bridge, the mystery is not resolved as the Master Thief strikes again to fool both inspectors. Until next time, the warrior returns to the Rising Stones where they hear there is a new primal arisen in Gridania, and civil unrest grows in Ul'dah from the refugees, resulting in rioting and culture clashes. Investigating who was paying guards to shoot on a non-violent gathering of protesters against discrimination, and supplying the protesters with weapons to retaliate violently, the warrior finds there is a cover-up at play, leading to a dirty scheme by Teleji to acquire the disputed Cartano Flats territory as his own. In truth, Teleji is a ruthless wildcard even among the Syndicate, who actually aims to seize Omega, an Allagan anti-Bahamut monstrosity even larger than Ultima weapon that was recently discovered there. Raban presumes it was likely the reason Nail once tried to destroy the area with Meteor, and Alphinaud does not miss the fact the Uldans were not quick to share discovery of such an entity with the Scions, nor how all these frequent crises are spreading the Scions thin. Minfilia escalates attention on the new primal, as with the Imperial base nearby and many still without a home, the refugees have entered the Sylph's woods unpermitted, prompting the Sylphs to summon Rama in defense. The warrior, with the Echo and a good relationship to the Sylphs, is sent as a diplomat to avoid confrontation, but the group finds that convincing illusory magic from hostile-tempered Sylphs divides and distracts them, questioning friend from foe. Parlaying with the Lord of Levin, Rama recognizes the warrior's feats but states their good intentions do not speak for the selfish misdeeds of others who trample on their sacred land. However, when the warrior shows Rama the crystal entrusted to them from Phrixio, he understands the warrior really does have the trust of both man and Sylph and proposes a trial instead. Should the warrior be able to withstand his wrathful judgment, then he will believe their proposition of harmony. Beginning the trial and cast in the name of God, Rama deems the warrior not guilty and gracefully accepts his defeat. After settling matters for peace, Urianger was observing and shares his idea on how to properly kill an Ascian. Minfilia explains that when those of the material realm die, their spirits dissolve into ether and return to the ethereal realm, where the restless energy within will stream back to the material one, birthing new life. Primals, however, are ether-given form and need ether to sustain themselves in the material realm. For so-called immortals like the Ascians, the Sahuagin reveal the secret to their trick in which when they die, they simply move to another host, be it a body or crystal, or wait in a space between the material and etheric realm. As shown before, capturing and defeating a stranded soul can destroy it permanently, and thus they now need to find a way to snatch and extinguish them. In the meanwhile, the warrior's deeds continue to attract new recruits and inspire others, including children, Tataru, and other aspiring adventurers. Even Alphinaud admits seeing the hope of people rising up helps him understand why his grandfather loved the courage of all the bravest, and wishing to do the same is motivated to build a new organization without borders and nations. As passion for a grand company and unification is already dropping across the realm, he wishes to start small with a private army that answers to the Scions. Unfortunately, seeking talent across the many faces and factions met thus far along the journey, the warrior finds confidence is low for the unproven assembled initiative, as many agree it's a noble but potentially corrupted idea, especially since many know most of the funding behind it comes from the Syndicate. Still, some notable folk like Riol of the former Company of Heroes and traitors like Laurentius who betrayed Gridania for the Empire are among those who agree to join. Meanwhile, over in Ul'dah, Nanamo contemplates both sides of the issue while frustrated to learn Teleji has craftily broken no laws in his acts of blatant treason and cannot be arrested. Elsewhere, working with his Ishgardian ally Orshifon, the warrior learns a group of heretics working for someone called Lady Iceheart is stealing the supplies sent to Mordona. At the same time, clad in new uniforms, Alphinaud welcomes and celebrates the vanguard of elite adventurers and questionable sellswords gathered to serve Eorzea, naming them the Crystal Braves. At the same time, Minfilia hears that while the Isle of Val is indeed gone, her friend Cryle has been successfully recovered, unconscious but alive. Elsewhere, the Archbishop stands before his army, though the Ascians stand behind him in influence as they prepare the next move. Over with Noah, the group is approached by two Allagan scholars named Une and Doga, who claim they are here to assist, and G'raha suddenly has a pain in his head. The two scholars notice he has the same right eye as them, and surprised to hear this, G'raha reveals he also has the rare red Allagan eye he inherited from his father's bloodline, unique only to Allagans, yet does not know its purpose. Une and Doga are somehow able to grant them access further within the main spire, as Nero chooses to reveal himself, assuring them he is without power, wanted dead in his homeland, and is of no threat to them, wishing to make amends. He then reveals Une and Doga are clones of Allagan royalty and living keys, as the pair admits this, as well as gifting Sid a precious tombstone. The clones that explain that after Allag reached its golden age it began to stagnate and become in need of a strong ruler, of which a man named Amon stepped up to make the nation great again by resurrecting their founder, Emperor Xande. Une and Doga were just clones of Xande's descendants made as part of the experiment to clone Xande, which succeeded, as he indeed restored the glory of the kingdom, escalating into plans of world domination. Looking to harness darkness itself, the Crystal Tower was converted into a research facility, Dalamud was launched to generate more power, and an unfortunate cataclysmic earthquake that ushered in the Fourth Umbral Era buried the tower. Acting quickly, Amon froze the entire tower, along with its inhabitants in Xande, in time to preserve them. However, when Dalamud was summoned as Meteor, the calamity caused the Crystal Tower to re-emerge and Emperor Xande reawakened. Hearing this, Rambros calls off the expedition, as not only do they have two living Allagans with them, but he decides the dark secrets of the tower should not be opened so carelessly. Lingering threats, including Xande himself, need to be dealt with, but before they begin, it's mentioned that Allagan eye G'raha has is a trait only held by those of royal blood. Climbing to the top of Circus Tower, the group topples the once mighty Emperor Xande, but now the distortion Xande has opened appears, connecting to the world of darkness. Checking its readings, Nero laughs in excitement at the incredible power beyond the rift, but suddenly, void-sent clones emerge and surround them. Doga, Une, and Nero are all seized and pulled into the rift, and a being called the Cloud of Darkness speaks out that she shall devour all light and return the world to the void. As the rift closes, the clones fall, and the allies have no immediate way to pursue, and so leave to plan the means of a rescue. Meanwhile, the warrior assists the rival inspectors once again bungling over each other and catching a phantom thief after the treasure of a prized bride, while also dealing with a rogue band of vegetable men, and the mystery of the man with 1,000 faces continues. Back at the Rising Stones, the warrior learns of a person codenamed Ivy planting conspirators among the immortal flames, and hears the Garlean War of Succession is nearing its end. What more, the normally isolationist and reclusive Ishgardians have suddenly reached out to speak with the Scions diplomatically, and naturally this means they want something from them. Traveling to Ishgard, they meet Emmerich, Lord Commander of the Temple Knights, who offers a supply line to Revenant's Toll in exchange for their overwatch of the potential resurrection of Midgard-Sormr. After an exchange of high-level diplomacy, Alphinaud agrees, but just then they receive word of an ambush by Iceheart, and following the trail brings the warrior face-to-face with her as she introduces herself as Izael, and explains she is trying to end the war between dragon and man for the sake of Eorzea. However, she clarifies they mean to do so with their patron saint, Shiva, and adds the investigation also crosses over with their hunt for the saboteur, Ivy. As this goes on, a meeting is called between Alliance leaders as they discuss how the new Emperor of Garlemald has been chosen, the High Legatus, Varus, who has every intention of annexing Eorzea. Back on the Ivy case, the mole has been identified as Raban's second-in-command, Aline, and with Yugiri and her shinobi's help, they are able to capture her. At the same time, the Scions are visited by another Sharlayan scholar named Mombrita, who is an expert on aetherite technology, called in to help them capture Ascian's souls. Her expertise in experimental white orosite allows them to pursue Iceheart, who offers her body as a vessel for Shiva to be reborn, though the warrior defeats her primal possession. Before escaping, Iceheart insists the warrior is being led blindly and should think for themselves, advising them to seek Midgard-Sormr, while revealing she too is connected to the Mother Crystal. As the Ascians look on, the warriors thanked by both Ishgardian commanders, as the primal threat in their land has been dealt with, and the Scions have proven themselves a valuable ally worth supporting, even if only as a deterrent to enemies from the south. Afterwards, the warrior makes the report, though the means with which Iceheart turned into a primal is a mystery to the scholars, and more so that she somehow still retains Shiva's soul after defeat. Minfilia suspects she also has the Echo and perhaps even has knowledge of the Ishgardian Dravanian war origins. Moving on, Moenbryda explains how they can use white auricite to capture and destroy Ascian's souls, but the plan and means to do so still needs work. Additionally, an update on the Isle of All suggests the location was not so much destroyed as it was erased and torn from the fabric of reality. Wrapping up the business with a lead, it turns out she was a triple agent, working not only for the now Emperor Varus, but also the monetarist faction of Ul'dah, and yet still selling secrets to the heretics of Ishgard. Outraged at her betrayal and once again being exploited 3 times over, Raban swears a purge of the corruption in the city. At the same time, Nanamo meets with Kane Senna and Merylvib to explain that in order for the government to serve the people, it must be formed of the people, not the ambitions of a few, and so she seeks to dissolve the monetarists and the royalists, reforming the system into a republic instead, asking their help in containing the chaos that will ensue. Elsewhere, Urianger finds a means to the final coil of Bahamut, and Alphinaud comes out to greet his sister personally, and tells her he intends to join her in striking down the false mockery of their grandfather. Delving down together, the group finds scores of different dragons kept alive in cruel conditions, all for the sake of being the ones to call out to Bahamut and sustain his existence. Though Bahamut's hatred of man is well founded, it does not change the group's mission of ending him or his thralls, as they see how far his regeneration has come. Louisoix now comes in, explaining that for as long as man lives, dragonkind can never know peace, revealing he has ascended beyond the limits of mankind and become a primal himself. Revealing himself as Phoenix, the group is quick to destroy the legendary bird of immortal flame. His soul finally released, the true Louisoix thanks them all and explains that during Carteneau, after his prison for Bahamut failed, the residual ether saturating the area infused with the prayers of himself and others to save the realm, turning him into the primal Phoenix with the power to stop Meteor and decisively strike through even Bahamut. However, before they both dissipated, Bahamut claimed him as a thrall, and the remains of Dalamud sought to restore him. He gives parting words and the last ebbs of his power to his grandchildren before passing on, and the group moves on to shutting down the final coil, though the corpse of Bahamut fights back till the last. The twins find the tomes Louisoix gave them were halves of one whole, revealing he always intended for them to figuratively and literally work together, as the group battles the spirit of Bahamut Prime within its crystal heart and reduces the primal to ether to rest once and for all. After relaxing with another mystery to solve with Hildebrand, Ellie, and Briardine, the warrior deals with a tournament under threat of robbery and deception. Facing off against a lecherous Ultros and his sneezing partner Typhon, they all contend with the man with 1,000 faces once again, slipping in and slipping out of their grasp. Back to business, Teleji and the Monetarists are taking advantage of the Immortal Flames' disarray in the wake of their latest scandal, and there is suspicion rising within the ranks of even the Crystal Braves, especially the divisions hired straight from Ul'dah. In the meanwhile, the warrior makes good on the agreement to examine the remains of Midgard-Sormer personally, and is surprised to find the soul of the old king still lingers and imparts the message that its kind have heard the song and Ishgard will burn for its deeds. Seeing the warrior as the chosen of Hydaelyn, the dragon speaks to her and promises not to harm the adventurer, but with a single shot drains the light out of the crystals they have gathered thus far. It chuckles that it will not harm the warrior, but without the light protecting them, it cannot say the same of others, and per a covenant with the Mother Crystal, Midgard-Sormer is reborn as a small wormling bound to the warrior, still warning the Dragonsong heralds of Dravanian attack. Reporting this to their allies, though they are alarmed to hear that the warrior's victory in battle came at the price of their loss of light, the encounter confirms the Ishgardians need to seriously prepare. Now discussing the Ascians, they test Moenbryda's device to trap an Ascian's soul when an Ascian named Nabrialis interrupts and is delighted to see the warrior has lost the light. Seizing this opportunity, the Ascian hurries to Menphilia's office to steal Louisoix's staff there, bragging that he will use it to bring about the next rejoining. It's revealed the tablet and horn on the staff combined are able to draw vast amounts of ether from its surroundings, which is how Louisoix was able to invoke the power of the 12 without offering crystals. At the same time, Menphilia is kidnapped with the staff, and the warrior dashes after her, defeating Nabrialis within his own chrysalis, but his spirit comments that, as an immortal, he can try as many times again until he wins. Moenbryda tosses Menphilia her white auricite, and quickly they trap the Ascian. Wasting no time, the warrior picks up Louisoix's staff, Tupsamati, using its aether collection to forge an aetheric blade of light, and with it smites the Ascian. Unfortunately, it's not enough, and choosing quickly, Moenbryda chooses to sacrifice herself and her light to tip the scales and destroy the Paragon once and for all. As things settle down and the group grieves the loss of a friend, Urianger gives a personal eulogy, and the Scions seek to honor her sacrifice by completing her work on the aetheric blade. After the group pays respects, the warrior visits Noah, where the Ironworks have finished a device to reopen the Void Gate. Venturing into the world of darkness, the group clashes with the ever-devouring Cloud of Darkness, defeating it yet finding their allies worse for wear. In an uncharacteristic moment, Nero is nearly claimed by the darkness trying to defend the clones, and a sneak attack from the reforming cloud of darkness reveals G'raha's bloodline truly is Xande's royal lineage. With this granting him control over the tower by birthright, the clones share some of their power with G'raha and stay behind to buy him time to shut down the tower and cancel Xande's covenant with the darkness to close the rift. Sid reluctantly saves Nero after the clones save him from darkness, and G'raha chooses the same solution as Amon, sealing himself in the tower and locking it in time, until the world is ready to understand and utilize its power responsibly. Wrapping up the Phantom Thief case with Hildebrand, Ellie, and Briardine, they solve a multi-murder mystery with a twin-centered twist for revenge and foil a plot to turn Ul'dah into ground zero of a zombie outbreak thanks to a certain Manderville mother and the true treasure of the many friends Hildebrand has made along the way. After dueling a full-form Gilgamesh and his primal companion Enkidu, the warrior is called back to base as the Ishgardians report they have barely survived in the first wave of Dravanians and desperately require help, swallowing their pride to ask aid of the Scions and Grand Companies of Eorzea. At the same time, Iceheart is at the Ishgardians' doorstep, using Shiva's power to dispel the first of the anti-dragon barriers around their city and usher forth the heretic force. Meanwhile, the warrior meets with Emmerich again, who introduces them to his close friend Estinian, also known as Ishgard's Azure Dragoon. Emmerich adds the goal of Iceheart and the Dravanians is Nidhogg's stolen eye that, if returned to the Great Worm, would spell the end of Ishgard. Though the Ishgardians have refused to help Eorzea countless times, Emmerich shrewdly points out that were Ishgard to fall to their private war with the dragons, then the Empire would easily be able to move in and claim the North unopposed. As Alphinaud is forced to agree and join their war, Estinian shares he has become a vessel of Nidhogg's strength through the power of the eye, but he is not thralled to it, nor have it on his person. It does provide him a connection to Nidhogg, by which he can confirm the roar they all heard was Nidhogg's, one of Midgard-Sormer's 7 progeny. As they all prepare to enter another war, Riel warns the warrior that Wilred, a youth the warrior helped and recruited from Alamigo, suddenly disappeared, as well as all the seized black market weapons from the Ul'dah riots. Furthermore, Telegi's aggressive play for Carteneau is one of the reasons the other alliance leaders do not wish to lend aid to Ishgard outside of token support. However, they are out of time as the next wave of dragons assault Ishgard and the warrior helps repel a siege-breaking colossal threat off their steps. Successful, Ishgard recognizes the Scions as a true ally, and Minfilia gets a letter inviting his Scions to a royal banquet to celebrate their deeds, which seems awfully suspicious given the Alliance's refusal to help earlier. As the warrior oversees Tataru trying her best at being a less than effective arcanist in an effort to become Minfilia's bodyguard, the adventurer also assists on a mission during which the body of the missing Wilred has been found, murdered. Before leaving for the banquet, Riel pauses the warrior to tell them that after looking at Crystal Brave accounting, several donations were done under dummy companies, all under Telegi's business, meaning a fair portion of their force is directly on Telegi's payroll, so Riel suggests they watch their back in Ul'dah. As they arrive, the warrior is called away to take a message left with Momodi, and the proprietress hands them a message for them to meet with one of the Crystal Braves they recruited, Alian, before the ceremony. The warrior goes to a designated spot and reflects on the many comrades lost along the way of the many foes they have felled. They don't see Alian, but they do see a small cloudy vial on the ground and Laurentius nearby, claiming Alian was never here. He bids the warrior to proceed to the banquet, and afterwards looks on with a leer and sends a message to someone. Returning, the warriors then beckon to meet with the Sultana privately, while during the banquet, Minfilia and Alphinaud are glad to see Emmerich more open to speaking with the other national leaders. In fact, Emmerich is so moved by the contributions of the Eorzean alliance that he announces his intent to speak with the Archbishop about Ishgard rejoining its sister nations. Alphinaud is called away to speak with a brave named Yu Hase and a few others, as Nanamo's lady-in-waiting pours the Sultana a drink before leaving. Nanamo then shares with the warrior her intent to abdicate the throne and dissolve the monarchy, which is the real purpose of this feast. She asks the warrior to assist Ralban when the fallout occurs and treachery and chaos ensues, and the warrior agrees. She reflects that a lot has changed since they first met, and takes a drink from her chalice. Suddenly, Nanamo freezes as a poison takes hold, swiftly killing her, and on cue, Telegi with a retinue of crooked brass blades and the lady-in-waiting storm in to catch the warrior standing over the body. The merchant quickly accuses the warrior of regicide and calls for their arrest, while at the same time a sword is drawn on Alphinaud while Yu Hase assures him the Rising Stone is captured, as are most of those loyal to the Scions. Quickly, Telegi enters the hall with some Ishgardians to inform Emmerich and his commander Lucia that there has been a surprise dragon attack and they are to return to Ishgard. However, the Lord Commander finds it awfully suspicious that this report is the first he's heard of it, and the timing is too convenient, but leaves all the same. Outside, Thancred is surrounded by brass blades and accused of being a spy for the Garlean Empire, and though he admits it was true he was possessed at one point during the events of the Ultimate Weapon Crisis, he refuses to accept the blanket false charges and armed arrest. In the banquet hall, Raubahn is furious. Teleji claims the authority to march the brass blades he owns in here and remove state officials without royal consent, and Teleji begins to slander the Flame General for incompetency in defending the nation and being unaware of a recent assassination. He formally announces the Warrior of Light killed Sultana Nanamo, and further accuses the entire Order of Scions be charged as associates to the conspiracy. Ilberd, an old friend and rival to Raubahn and now captain within the Braves, now enters, warrior in hand, as Teleji adds the vial for the poison used was found on their person, as shown by Laurentius. Ishgard is not convinced of the thorough convenience of all this, and Teleji shoots back with a claim Infilia has used her unique dark magics to influence the minds of the Alliance leaders, pointing to the suddenly amicable relationship with Ishgard as proof of underhanded means. He then accuses their many acts of saving the realm and consolidation of power as a ruse to plan their treason, sedition, and eventual cooperation in an Ishgardian invasion. As Raubahn grieves, Teleji approaches him, saying the royalists can no longer run the nation, and so it falls to the monetarists and syndicate to run Ul'dah. Glaring at the merchant, Raubahn counter-accuses this is all actually a plot orchestrated by Teleji with his all-too-obvious motive. Teleji then brags he certainly had motive, as Nanamo was a useless puppet figurehead, and mockingly jeers he is glad she's dead. Snapping, the rage of the Flame General has him cutting down the treacherous merchant where he stands, as Lord Lolorito looks on and exclaims it's forbidden to draw weapons in the royal chambers, much less kill another syndicate member. He then accuses Raubahn of being in league with the Scions, and outraged, Raubahn calls for the scheming Lolorito next, though his charge is halted by his former friend Ilberd, who quickly cleaves off his arm. As Merlvib and Kane Senna are led away, Raubahn spits back at Ilberd for selling out, and the traitor replies the price was right and scoffs at how weak Raubahn has become over time. He leans in and whispers he was the one who killed the Sultana, and exploding in rage, Raubahn blows away Ilberd while freeing the warrior. He tells the Scions he never doubted them for a moment, but it's clear this is a small part of something big and they need to escape and figure things out. The Raging Bull holds the line as the Scions escape, catching up with Thancred, who recalls a little-used royal escape route. Ida and Papalimo cover their escape as traitorous Crystal Braves join the corrupted Brass Blades encroaching upon them, and the pair show the Scions will never be pushovers facing Eorzea as foes. Below, Ishgard and Thancred tell Minfilia and the warrior to prioritize escape as they hold off their pursuers and the conjure ops to collapse the tunnel on them all. As they flee, Minfilia gets a message from Hydaelyn to stay behind and ensure the warrior's safety, and reluctantly the adventurer obeys, exiting the tunnels and running into Alphino safely nearby along with the Lalafell gladiator. Alphino curses himself for being played like a fiddle by Teleji with the Crystal Braves, and just in time, the older traveler Brent shows up, carriage ready to discreetly carry them away. Brent mentions he was sent by Alize, and their companion introduces himself as Pippin, Vice Marshal of the Immortal Flames who was just arriving in the city when the chaos broke out and observed Alphino's imprisonment to be wrong. He is also very familiar with the greed and corruption of the Monetarists and has no doubt this is their ambitious scheme. Pippin then reveals he is Raubah's adopted child and knows for a fact his father is innocent and means to return and rescue him. A safe distance away, Pippin tries to cheer up Alphino from his dejected despair, as they are led to a meeting spot where Cid awaits, Enterprise nearby. Needing a place to breathe outside the reach of the Monetarists, Alphino suggests Ishgard, and Pippin opts to stay behind and combat the attempts to defame the Scions across the land, having faith most common folk will not be so easily persuaded. Arriving in Korthis, they meet with Orshafon, whose belief in his friends is unshakable. He also adds there indeed was an intrusion into Ishgard by dragons that was quickly put down, but this has placed the city on high alert. While the issue of their asylum will be tabled for now, they are more than welcome to take shelter here and even station a new headquarters if they want. Incidentally, the cold shoulder Ishgard normally gives other nations will be to their benefit now, as they will refuse any outside inquiries about the Scions until their innocence is accepted. Like how the warrior fought to restore the honor of the knights, so too shall the knights repay the debt to the Scions. He then shows them a few allies already here, such as Tataru, who was saved thanks to an observant Yugiri when the Crystal Braves tried to capture them, though her mask was lost in the struggle. They sought refuge in the Waking Sands first, where Urianger was holding things down, but no one else came, and so Yugiri's shinobi are currently searching for the other Scions. The Rising Stones is compromised by traitors, but Doma stands with the Scions and is also eager to repay the debt of honor. Alphino continues to kick himself, but Tataru reminds him Minfilia's words of always standing as a beacon of hope against despair, and slowly he begins to warm up and regain himself. As the chapter ends, Nanamo's lady-in-waiting is shown to have been working for Lolorito, and Raubahn has been imprisoned, stewing in his fury and rage. With the Ascians, Elidibus tells La Habrea how Nabrialis died, and La Habrea is unsympathetic. Still, they both feel they need to expedite their plans and set their sights on the northern lands. Afterwards, Urianger arrives at the summons of Elidibus, who begins to talk about their fate. Finally, Midgard Sormer warns the warrior about finding sanctuary in Ishgard as they look heavensward to an uncertain future. During this point of the game, Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn has enjoyed the success of having over 4 million players worldwide. Thank you for watching this recap, I hope it helped, and again, huge thanks to Nanako Grace and Collaboration for completing this video. Subscribe for more Final Fantasy recaps, share with someone who needs a refresher on 14's campaign, and shout out to the patrons and channel members. If you would like to support the show yourself, please follow the links in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next battlefield.